For 100 years, the alien empire prepared for war. They were called the Zelari, a proud race, tall and beautiful, with sharp minds and stronger bodies. In their eyes, Earth was weak, a small blue planet filled with fragile humans. The Zelari believed conquering humans would be easy, but they also believed in perfection. If they wanted victory, they would not risk mistakes. And so, they trained for an entire century. On their homeworld, under 3 suns, giant cities became training grounds. Children were raised as soldiers. From the moment they could walk, they learned to fight. Their schools taught not just numbers and words, but weapons, war, and the art of command. Every lesson was about one goal, the invasion of Earth. The Zelari built ships the size of mountains. Their shipyards glowed day and night, filling the skies with black metal giants. Thousands of warships, each one armed with cannons that could split a planet. Their fleets stretched so far across the stars that when they gathered, they looked like a moving shadow swallowing the heavens. Their leaders promised glory. In 100 years, they said, the humans will kneel before us. We will take their world, their oceans, their lands. Earth will be ours. And the people believed. They sacrificed their lives, their time, their freedom, for this dream of conquest. The alien commander was chosen long before the invasion began. A young woman of rare beauty and power. Her name was whispered with respect. Her eyes glowed like stars. Her voice could command armies, and her mind was sharper than any blade. She was raised not as a daughter, not as a child, but as a weapon. From the time she could speak, she was told, "You will lead the fleet that destroys Earth." She grew with this mission inside her heart. Every battle she fought, every lesson she learned, was for this one day. She trained her soldiers to be perfect. Mistakes were not allowed. Weakness was punished. Loyalty was demanded. To serve under her was an honor and a fear. The Empire spent not just years, but lifetimes creating weapons for this war. Cannons that could melt mountains, beams that could burn through the atmosphere of a planet, bombs that could crack the ground open and swallow cities whole. Engineers whispered that no human weapon could match them. The aliens smiled, believing victory was already written in the stars, but still, they waited. Still, they trained every day for 100 years. The soldiers fought drills that felt like real war. They attacked simulations of Earth cities, studied Earth languages, and watched Earth history. They knew human wars, human leaders, human mistakes. They thought they understood humanity. To them, humans were nothing but animals with tools. Clever, yes, but not powerful. The alien fleet grew so vast that their own skies could not hold them. They had to scatter their ships across nearby star systems. But no one complained. They were patient. They were hungry for glory. They dreamed of the day when they would descend upon Earth like gods. The commander herself often stood on the deck of the flagship, staring into the stars, her silver dress shining under the light of her world's suns. Her soldiers looked at her with devotion. They believed she was chosen by destiny itself. When she raised her hand, entire fleets obeyed. When she spoke, millions of voices fell silent. The alien empire celebrated the coming war as if it was a festival. Every year, they marked the countdown. 90 years left, 50 years left, 10 years left. Each year, the people cheered louder, their hope burning brighter. They were certain the humans could not resist them. The Zelari believed in their own strength, their own weapons, their own perfection. They believed that training for 100 years made them unstoppable. They believed the humans were weak, small, and unprepared. They never asked the one question that mattered most. What if humans were not what they seemed? As the final year came, the alien commander stood before her army. Her voice echoed across worlds. "We have trained for a century. Our ancestors gave their lives so that we may win this war. Tomorrow we take Earth. Tomorrow, humanity ends." Her soldiers roared with pride. The sound of their voices shook the air, a storm of confidence and power. The fleet was ready. The weapons were armed. The dream of 100 years was about to be real. The stars themselves seemed to wait, silent witnesses to the coming storm. And yet, far away, on the little blue planet they planned to conquer, humanity was not afraid. Humanity was not sleeping. Humanity was watching. The stage was set. The invaders believed they were ready. But the truth was waiting, hidden like a blade in the dark. The aliens had trained for 100 years to invade Earth. And in 6 minutes, they would learn the truth. The dark silence of space broke as the alien fleet entered the solar system. Thousands of warships moved together like a swarm of steel beasts, their glowing engines cutting bright scars across the endless black. The alien people had waited 100 years for this moment, and now their dream of conquest was close enough to touch. Earth was only a small blue jewel ahead of them, fragile and shining, waiting to be taken. The flagship led the way, larger than a city, built with armor that no weapon was meant to break. Its towers rose like black mountains, lined with glowing blue lights and red pulses of energy. From its command deck, the alien commander stood with calm eyes, her beauty striking and dangerous. Her silver dress clung to her form like it was woven from starlight itself, and her glowing eyes reflected the light of distant planets. She did not smile, but inside her chest, pride burned. This was the day she was born for. Around her, officers stood in silence, waiting for her command. Screens glowed with information about Earth, its oceans, its continents, its defenses. The commander's voice was smooth but strong when she finally spoke. There it is, humanity's home. We will end them quickly. We will show them what a century of preparation can do. Her words spread across the fleet. Soldiers cheered inside their ships. Some hit their armor with fists, others shouted battle cries that shook the decks. The aliens believed victory was already theirs. They had weapons no human could match. They had ships no human could stop. Earth did not respond. The planet spun quietly, clouds swirling over blue seas and green lands. Cities lit the night side of the world like sparks, but no weapons fired. No ships rose to meet the invaders. To the aliens, this silence looked like fear. They laughed. They told each other humans were already surrendering. The fleet moved closer. Warships passed Mars, their shadows covering the red planet. They ignored it. Mars was nothing. Their eyes were only on Earth. The commander raised her hand, and the flagship slowed. The fleet spread into formation, stretching across the solar system like a giant web of steel. From space, they looked like a storm cloud rolling toward Earth. On the viewing platform, the commander looked down at the blue planet. For a moment, she thought of the long years behind her, the training, the pain, the endless waiting. She thought of her ancestors who never saw this day, who died believing their children would conquer Earth. She whispered softly, words meant only for herself. At last, the order was given. Small attack ships, fast and sharp like knives, shot ahead of the fleet. They dove toward Earth's orbit, scanning, searching, preparing to strike. The commander watched them go, her heart steady. She had no doubt, no fear. For 100 years, she was told this day would be hers. Then something strange happened. The attack ships flew closer, but Earth still did not fight back. No missiles, no defense satellites, no fleets rising from the planet. Just silence. The alien officers looked at each other. Some frowned, some whispered. Was humanity so weak, or was something hidden? The commander narrowed her glowing eyes. She had studied humans for decades. She knew their history, their wars, their hunger to survive. Humans never surrendered so easily. They always fought, even when hope was gone. So why were they quiet now? The silence was not weakness, it was waiting. The fleet moved into Earth's orbit. Shadows of alien ships covered the skies. People on Earth looked up and saw darkness where stars should be. Oceans reflected the glowing thrusters. Mountains shook with the sound of engines. Humanity saw the invaders, but humanity did not panic. The alien soldiers, however, were restless. They had trained for this day their entire lives. Their blood burned for battle. They wanted to hear screams, to see fire, to taste victory. They did not want silence. They wanted war. The commander raised her hand again. Fire the first strike. Giant cannons charged. Blue energy glowed along the sides of the alien ships, building brighter and brighter until the light looked like a second sun. Then the beams fired. The first strike hit Earth's orbit, tearing through satellites, turning them into burning dust. The second strike cut through the upper atmosphere, boiling the sky with fire. The aliens cheered. Explosions danced across the blackness, and for a moment, it looked as if Earth had no chance. But the commander still felt uneasy. Her glowing eyes stayed fixed on the planet below. She whispered again, too soft for anyone to hear. Why don't they fight? Her officers laughed behind her. One of them said, because they are already defeated. She did not answer. Something deep inside her told her the silence meant danger. The alien fleet roared with pride. After 100 years of waiting, the war had begun. They thought it would be fast. They thought it would be glorious. But far below, humanity was watching. Humanity was preparing. And in only 6 minutes, the invaders would learn the truth. The sky above Earth darkened as the alien fleet opened fire. Brilliant beams of energy, hotter than the sun, cut across the void and slammed into Earth's orbit. Satellites burned instantly, breaking apart into glowing fragments that fell like meteors. Communication towers on the ground went silent. The aliens cheered, convinced the humans were blind now, helpless against the storm. The commander stood tall on the flagship, her silver dress reflecting the glow of the explosions outside the windows. Her soldiers looked at her with admiration, waiting for her next command. She raised her hand slowly, her glowing eyes locked on the planet below. "Continue the assault," she ordered. Dozens of smaller ships dived through the atmosphere, leaving trails of fire behind them. They targeted oceans, cities, power grids. Entire blocks of buildings shook as shock waves tore through the air. People ran through the streets, not screaming, not begging, but moving quickly to shelters. The aliens thought this was panic. To them, humans were ants scattering before the storm. But there was something strange in the way Earth reacted. The cities did not crumble as fast as expected. The lights did not all go out. Even after the first wave of fire, humanity was still there, still standing. The alien officers whispered among themselves. Some frowned at their screens, confused. The commander ignored their doubt. "Press harder," she said. Her voice was calm, but inside her chest there was a weight she could not shake. She had studied humans her whole life. She had read of their wars, their history, their endless fight for survival. And in every story, humanity never gave up easily. The fleet unleashed another wave. Cannons fired again and again, beams slicing through the skies. Oceans boiled where they struck, turning into clouds of steam. Mountains cracked and shook. To the aliens, it looked like the end of the world. Soldiers in the fleet shouted in triumph, hitting their armor, believing victory was only moments away. Yet the planet remained silent. Earth's armies did not rise. No ships launched to defend the skies. No missiles climbed into the heavens. Only silence. The silence was worse than any counterattack. The commander's glowing eyes narrowed as she stared at the planet. "Something is wrong," she whispered to herself. One of her officers laughed. "Commander, there is nothing wrong. Look at them. They are weak. They hide in fear." She did not answer. Her instincts screamed louder than the cheers of her people. The smaller alien ships flying through the atmosphere sent back reports. Some showed humans watching the skies, their faces calm. Others showed strange movements underground, power surges in places where no cities existed. One pilot reported seeing flashes in the ocean, like lightning under the waves. Then the report cut off, the screen turning to static. The aliens dismissed it. They believed it was a system failure, nothing more. But the commander's hands tightened. "On the railing, humans are waiting," she said softly. Still, the fleet continued its assault. Explosions filled the skies. From space, Earth looked scarred, smoke rising from oceans and continents. To the alien people, it was a beautiful sight. To them, this was glory. This was the proof of a century of training. But deep inside, a clock had already started. Humanity's patience was running out. The commander turned to the stars above Earth. For a moment, she thought she saw movement, something sleek, something fast, something far more advanced than she expected. But before she could focus, it was gone. Her heart beat faster. She felt like prey instead of predator. The fleet fired again. The third wave struck harder than before. Cities shook, fires spread, satellites fell like rain. The alien officers clapped their hands in victory. "It is done," one of them said. "Earth belongs to us now." But the commander stayed silent. Her glowing eyes remained on the blue planet below. She did not believe it was over. She had trained too long, studied too much, to think humans would fall so easily. The silence of Earth was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. She felt it in her chest. She felt it in the stars themselves. The first attack was nearly complete. The alien fleet stood proud, their weapons still glowing, their soldiers still celebrating. But in the heart of every celebration hides a shadow. And in the silence of Earth, that shadow was growing far below the clouds, far beneath the oceans. Humanity was not broken. Humanity was not afraid. Humanity was waiting. The aliens had begun their war with fire and pride, but the humans had not yet spoken. And when humanity answered, the universe would never forget. For long minutes, the alien fleet rained fire upon Earth. Their cannons glowed brighter than the stars, tearing across the skies, shaking the seas, and lighting the continents with fire. Alien soldiers cheered from their warships, shouting in triumph as they believed the humans were finished. The silence of Earth only fed their pride. They thought it was fear, they thought it was surrender. But silence can be a dangerous thing. Silence can hide thunder. The alien commander stood at the edge of her flagship's command deck, eyes glowing as she studied the planet below. Her soldiers celebrated around her, But she did not join them. She felt something in her chest, a weight she could not explain. She had read too much human history to be fooled by this quiet. Humans never surrendered without a fight, not once in all their bloody past. And then, without warning, Earth answered. It began with a whisper in the stars, a strange pulse of energy moving faster than light. Alien sensors flared red with warnings. Officers panicked, trying to explain what it was, but no one had an answer. The commander's eyes narrowed. "It begins," she whispered. The fleet tightened formation, preparing for a counterattack, but they were too late. From the darkness beyond Earth's orbit, human warships appeared. They were sleek, black, and silent shapes that almost melted into the stars. Their engines did not glow like alien thrusters. Instead, they shimmered with strange light, bending space itself as if the universe obeyed them. One after another they emerged, hundreds of them, surrounding the alien fleet like predators circling prey. The aliens froze. Soldiers who had shouted with pride now stared with wide eyes. No one had expected this. For 100 years, the aliens believed humans were weak, divided, slow. But what they saw now was something far beyond weakness. This was power. The first human ship fired. It did not use beams like the aliens. It used something else, something silent, something invisible, until the very last moment. A flash of light, and then an alien battleship, larger than a mountain, split apart as if it had been sliced by a giant blade. The explosion lit the fleet like a second sun. The alien soldiers screamed in shock. "What is this?" One officer cried. Another human ship fired. Another alien warship exploded. Then another, and another. The silence of Earth was gone. Humanity had spoken. The alien commander gripped the railing, her glowing eyes wide for the first time. She could not believe what she was seeing. This was not the humanity she studied. This was not the weak planet she was promised. These were not animals with tools. These were warriors. On Earth, hidden deep underground, human command centers came. Alive screens glowed with strategy. Generals gave orders calmly, their faces hard as stone. They had been waiting. For every year the aliens trained, humans had built something greater. They had created weapons the aliens had never imagined. They had prepared for this day that the alien fleet tried to respond. Cannons turned, beams fired, but their shots missed. Human ships moved too fast, bending in and out of sight, appearing behind their enemies and striking with perfect precision. It was not a battle. It was a hunt. The aliens fired wildly, filling space with light, but their beams hit nothing. The humans danced between them, silent, deadly, untouchable. Every time a human ship appeared, an alien warship died. The commander shouted commands, her voice shaking the deck, but her orders were useless. Her soldiers could not fight an enemy they could barely see. She slammed her hand on the railing. No, this cannot be. But it was happening. Human weapons cut through the alien fleet like fire through paper. Ships that took a century to build, destroyed in seconds. Soldiers who trained their whole lives, erased before they could fire a shot. The aliens had thought Earth was silent because it was weak, but the truth was far more terrifying. Earth was silent because it was ready. The commander's silver dress shimmered in the flashing lights of explosions outside. Her eyes burned with fury, but beneath the fury was something new: fear. She had never known fear before, not in training, not in battle, but now she felt it, cold and sharp, twisting inside her chest. Around her, officers shouted in panic. "We are surrounded. Our weapons are useless. They're everywhere." She wanted to scream back at them, but the words would not come. All she could think was one truth. Humans were not prey. Humans were predators. On Earth, as fires from the alien attack still burned across the skies, people looked upward. They saw flashes of light, alien ships exploding like dying stars. They saw humanity's defenders fighting back, and for the first time that night, they cheered, not in fear, not in despair, but with pride. The war had begun. The humans had answered, and the answer was more powerful than the aliens had ever dreamed. The commander gritted her teeth, forcing her voice to rise above the chaos. "Hold your ground. Fight them." But deep inside, she knew the truth. The first minutes of the war were ending, and already her fleet was broken. The humans had turned the battlefield into a graveyard. End soon. In only a few more minutes, nothing would remain of her century of preparation. The battlefield of space burned with light. Alien ships, once proud and shining, now drifted as burning wrecks. Explosions ripped through the darkness, scattering fire across the void. Human warships moved between them like hunters, sleek and silent, striking with deadly precision. The aliens had believed they were unstoppable. But in minutes their certainty was shattered. The commander stood on the flagship's bridge, her glowing eyes locked on the chaos. Her soldiers shouted around her, alarms screamed, officers begged for orders, but she could not answer. Every moment, another warship was lost. Every heartbeat, another part of her fleet turned to ash. She raised her hand, forcing her voice to cut through the noise. Focus fire on their lead ships, she commanded. Her officers obeyed instantly, aiming the cannons toward the humans. Dozens of beams of energy fired at once, enough power to destroy a planet's surface. But the human ships moved. They bent space, sliding between dimensions, disappearing before the beams struck. In an instant they reappeared behind the alien cannons, firing weapons that tore through armor like it was nothing but paper. The alien ships burst into fire, silent screams lost in the vacuum. The commander's chest tightened. These were not animals. These were not weaklings. Humans had built weapons beyond her understanding. She whispered, almost to herself, "This is impossible." The flagship trembled as a blast hit its side. Shields flared. Sparks flew across the bridge. The commander gripped the railing, steadying herself. She would not fall, not in front of her soldiers. But inside, she felt something she had never known before. Not anger, not even rage. Fear. Her mind raced. For 100 years, her people had trained for this war. They had studied every human weakness. They had built ships larger than mountains, weapons brighter than suns. And yet, in less than 5 minutes, they were being destroyed. One of her officers shouted, "Half the fleet is gone." Another screamed, "We cannot match their speed." She clenched her teeth. "Fight harder. We are the Zelari. We do not break." But her words could not stop the truth. The battle was no longer a battle, it was a massacre. Human ships struck in perfect rhythm. One appeared above the fleet, firing into a cluster of alien vessels. Another emerged below, cutting apart the escorts that tried to shield the flagship. The aliens turned their cannons again and again, but they always aimed too late. The humans were already gone, already behind them, already killing the commanders. Thoughts turned dark. What had the humans done in these 100 years? While the Zelari trained, humans had been silent. While the Zelari built ships, humans had been building something else, something faster, something deadlier, something that could end a war in minutes. She looked again at the planet below. Earth glowed blue and green, clouds swirling peacefully, as if untouched by the chaos above. It looked fragile. But now she understood it was not fragile, it was a trap. The flagship shook again, harder this time. A human shot had pierced through its shields. Alarms howled, sparks flew, and smoke filled the air. Soldiers coughed, choking as fire spread across the deck. Officers shouted reports, but their voices were drowned by the sound of the dying ship. The commander's glowing eyes burned with fury. She would not accept this. Not after a century of preparation, not after everything her people had sacrificed. She slammed her hand against the railing, shouting, "All ships, protect the flagship, surround us." But it was useless. The human ships were already there. In a blur of light, 3 appeared at once around the flagship. They fired together, blasts tearing across its armor, shaking it to its core. The commander fell to one knee, gripping the floor, her teeth clenched. She could hear her soldiers screaming, could see the terror in their faces. This was not glory. This was death. The humans did not waste time. They struck again and again, precise, ruthless. Alien ships that had trained for 100 years were gone in seconds, and with each one destroyed, the silence grew heavier. The silence of a dream. Ending, the commander rose slowly to her feet. She refused to bow, even in defeat. She stared at the human ships outside, her chest heaving. "You think you have won," she whispered, though no one could hear her. "We are the Zelari, we are eternal. This is not the end." But in her heart she knew the truth. It was the end. The battle had turned. No, it had been turned from the very beginning. The humans had planned for this moment, hidden their strength, waited with patience. And now, in less than 6 minutes, the war was nearly finished. The commander stood tall in the smoke of her dying flagship, her silver dress torn, her soldiers broken. Around her, the fleet burned. The aliens had believed they were gods. But tonight, they were nothing more than prey. And humanity, silent and patient, was the hunter. The clock had barely touched 6 minutes since the first human strike, and already the alien fleet was falling apart. Ships that had taken decades to build were now drifting wrecks. Fire spread across the black void of space, debris glowing like dying stars. The battlefield that once belonged to the Zelari now looked like a graveyard of their dreams. The commander stood on her flagship, her body steady though the ship shook around her. Sparks rained from the ceiling, smoke curled across the deck. Soldiers coughed and stumbled. Officers screamed reports, their voices sharp with panic. We are losing shields. The engines are failing. We cannot hold them back. Her glowing eyes stayed fixed on the human ships outside. They moved like shadows, too fast, too precise, striking with a power her people could not match. Every time the fleet tried to regroup, another explosion tore them apart. 5 minutes had passed. That was all. 5 minutes, and the fleet of 100 years was broken. The commander's chest felt heavy. She wanted to scream, to rage against the humans, but inside she knew the truth. This was not a battle. This was an execution. She thought of her people back home, the generations who had trained for this war, the children raised not to play but to fight. She thought of the promises she had made that she would bring them victory, that Earth would fall at her feet. She had believed it. She had believed the humans were weak. Now, with her fleet burning, she wondered if she had ever truly known her enemy at all. Another blast shook the flagship. Lights flickered, metal cracked. The commander staggered but did not fall. She refused to fall. Her voice rose above the alarms. Return fire. All of you. We do not stop. Her soldiers obeyed, firing cannons into the blackness. But their beams struck nothing. The human ships vanished before impact, bending space itself, reappearing where the aliens were most exposed. Then came the strike, sharp and final. Another battleship erupted into fire, its pieces scattering across the void. 6 minutes, that was all it took. The commander's mind burned with disbelief. How could a century of training collapse in 6 minutes? How could an empire's pride vanish so quickly? She clenched her fists until her nails cut into her palms. She had been told humans were fragile, divided, too weak to stand against the Zellery, but what she faced now was not weakness. It was strength unlike anything she had ever known. She turned toward Earth, the small blue planet glowing quietly beneath the fleet. Even as fire spread above its skies, it did not look afraid. It looked patient, almost calm, as if it had known this moment was coming all along. Her lips trembled, but she forced the words out. What are you? Humans. The humans did not answer with words. They answered with fire. 3 human ships appeared together, their strange engines glowing faintly, their weapons already charged. They struck the flagship at once. The deck screamed as the blast ripped across it. Metal bent, armor shattered. The great ship trembled like it was about to break in half. Soldiers were thrown against the walls, some crushed under falling beams. Alarms screamed louder, a chorus of death. Officers begged for orders, but their commander stood frozen, her eyes on the human ships. There were not many. They were not massive like the Zellery fleet, but they were precise. They were unstoppable. 6 minutes. That was all. The commander's silver dress was torn, stained with smoke and fire. Her once perfect figure stood in ruin, but still she held her chin high. Her people looked at her, desperate for strength, desperate for hope. She could not give them victory, but she could give them one last image, that of a leader who would not kneel, even in defeat. She raised her voice, calm and steady, though her heart shook inside her chest. Fight until the end. If we must fall, we fall with honor. Her soldiers shouted in reply, their voices fierce but broken. They knew honor would not save them. The humans struck again. Another wave of fire, another explosion tearing through the fleet. The flagship groaned, its engines dying, its shields collapsing. The commander's glowing eyes dimmed, but she did not look away. She would watch until the very last moment, and then it happened. The flagship's core failed. A thunderous blast split through the ship, breaking it apart piece by piece. The commander stood tall on the deck, smoke swirling around her, fire rising. Behind her, she whispered one last word into the silence of space. Why? Her voice vanished as the flagship exploded, fragments scattering into the dark. In 6 minutes, it was over. The Zellery fleet, trained for 100 years, no longer existed. The black void that once held their glory now held only silence, broken by the faint hum of human ships moving among the wreckage. On Earth, people watched the skies. They saw the flashes, the falling debris, the proof that their defenders had triumphed. Cheers rose from every city, every shelter, every hidden base. Humanity had survived, but the humans did not cheer in space. Their ships moved with quiet precision, collecting data, scanning the ruins, making sure the enemy was truly gone. Their silence was not fear, not hesitation. It was calculation. It was patience. The war had ended in 6 minutes, but for the humans, this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The battlefield was quiet at last. Smoke and fire drifted among the stars where once the mighty alien fleet had stood. Wreckage floated in silence, broken pieces of warships that had taken a century to build. What had been a storm of pride and power was now nothing more than dust and ash. The humans did not cheer. Their ships moved slowly among the ruins, black and sleek, gliding like shadows. They scanned for survivors. They marked the dead, but there was no celebration. They had known this would happen. They had prepared for it. On Earth, the people shouted. With joy, they saw the sky light up with victory, the end of the invaders who had promised to destroy them. For them, it was a miracle. For the soldiers in space, it was only the result of hard truth. Preparation wins wars. The alien commander was gone, her flagship nothing more than fragments glowing in the darkness, her proud eyes, her shining dress, her voice that once commanded. Millions vanished in fire. She had believed humans were weak. She had believed 100 years of training made her people unstoppable. And yet, in 6 minutes her dream had ended. The truth was simple. While the Zelari had trained, the humans had evolved. While the aliens built bigger ships, the humans built smarter weapons. While the Zelari studied Earth's history, the humans studied the future. Human scientists had worked in silence, building machines that could bend space, weapons that could cut through armor before an enemy could even see them. They hid their progress, never showing their true power. They waited, letting the aliens believe they were strong. They let the invaders come closer, let them cross the stars, let them think victory was near. And only when the time was right, humanity struck. This was why Earth had been silent during the first attacks. It was not fear. It was not surrender. It was patience. Patience had always been humanity's greatest weapon. In the underground command centers of Earth, the generals watched the last alien wrecks scatter. One of them leaned back in his chair, his voice calm. 6 minutes, that's all it took, another answered. They trained for 100 years. But they never understood us. There was no arrogance in their words, only truth. For humans had always been underestimated. In the long history of the species, stronger enemies had come again and again: nature, disease, war, even each other. Yet every time, humanity endured, not because they were the strongest, not because they were the biggest, but because they refused to stop. That was the lesson the aliens had never learned. Above the blue planet, human ships formed a protective ring, a silent shield against whatever might come next. The stars beyond were still filled with danger, and the generals knew this battle was only one of many. But the message was clear. Earth would never fall easily. The wreckage of the alien fleet drifted slowly into the void. Somewhere in the silence, black boxes from their ships recorded their last moments, signals that might one day reach the empire they had left behind. If they did, they would carry only one message: do not come to Earth. In the shelters below, children laughed and cried, hugging their families. They did not know the full truth of what had happened, but they knew one thing: that their world was safe. In their eyes, humans had done the impossible. In reality, humans had simply done what they had always done: survived. The story of the 6 minutes spread across Earth like fire. People told it in the streets, in the skies, in the silence of their homes. They said it with pride, with disbelief, with awe. The aliens had trained for a century, and they had survived only 6 minutes. Far above, in the shadows of their ships, the human soldiers stayed quiet. Their faces were hard, their voices steady. They did not need to shout. The universe would remember this day without their words. For them, this was not just a victory. It was a warning. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. They had shown the truth to the stars. The humans had waited in silence, hidden their strength, and struck with perfection. The war was not measured in years or even days. It was measured in minutes. 6 minutes, that was all it took for an empire to fall. As the last alien fire died in the dark, the Earth spun quietly below, beautiful and calm, as if nothing had happened. But the truth was written in the ruins above. Aliens trained for 100 years to invade Earth. They survived only 6 minutes, and in the silence that followed, the universe learned the oldest lesson of all: humans are special.